need some sleep. Run.
Wait, you're a cop?
Yeah, Leon Kennedy. You are?
Claire. Claire Redfield.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm Dreamality. Welcome to my review of Resident Evil 2, the remake. This is a remake of the original game that came out on the PlayStation 1 about 20 years ago. I have never played that original game, so consider this a newcomer's perspective. Now, is this game worth your money? Is it worth your time? That's what I'm here to help you answer. Let's keep this review as spoiler-free as possible, and begin by breaking down the story. The story takes place in Raccoon City, where a zombie outbreak has occurred. There are two characters to play as, Leon S. Kennedy and Claire Redfield. Both characters find themselves trapped inside of a police station and are trying to find a way out. The story early on is delivered mostly through exploration and finding documents in the environment. These documents did a good job building the world. They're all short but effective, and give you an idea of what some of the cops were going through prior to your arrival. As the story progresses, there are more and more cutscenes. The plot thickens. Although the two stories are mostly simple, I enjoyed them and got more and more invested as the game went on and as more characters were introduced. There aren't many characters, but I liked all the ones that are here. How different is Claire's story versus Leon's story? Here's where it can get a bit confusing. When you first begin the game, you have access to Leon's A story and Claire's A story. Both of these A stories follow an almost identical path. For example, no matter who you play as, you'll start in this gas station. However, the tones and the motivations are different for Leon and Claire. Leon's story is like a mystery thriller in which he's trying to uncover the cause of the outbreak. Claire's is more family-esque. She's trying to find her missing brother. Also, characters that appear in both stories have slightly different lines and different tones. For example, this cop is very soft and friendly with Claire, whereas he's very stern with Leon. I chose to play as Leon first, and after completing his story, I unlocked Claire's B story. In a few ways, these stories are connected because you can see what Claire was doing while Leon was doing other things. However, it's easier to enjoy the stories individually because there are far too many inconsistencies when connecting Claire and Leon's stories. For example, not all but many boss battles, puzzles, and locations are the same. Also, a major story character that is present in both stories dies in different ways in each story. One of the biggest differences between Claire and Leon's campaigns are the bonus character missions. I won't get into detail with them, but I will say I enjoyed both very much. Overall, I enjoyed Resident Evil 2's story. Just know what you're getting. If you count all A and B versions of the stories, you have 4 very similar stories with some differences sprinkled throughout. There are 3 difficulties to choose from. On Standard, my Leon playthrough took me about 11 hours to complete. That was with me taking my time exploring and figuring out all the puzzles on my own. My Claire playthrough took me about 7 hours. But make no mistake, I was taking my time. If you want to get through them as fast as you can, these stories can be finished in as little as 4 hours. That's no easy task, you really have to know what you're doing, but it's possible. Even on the standard difficulty, I found the game had plenty of challenge. It was difficult at times, but I thought it was always fair. Yes, even the moments where you're being chased. If you want something a little less stressful, the assisted difficulty enables aim assist, making aiming a lot easier, and your character even regains health over time slowly without the use of items. Throughout your playthrough, you'll find new weapons, weapon upgrades, inventory space upgrades, and health items. The game even helps you out by color coding the map. All the areas on the map that have no items left for you to discover are coded in blue. If a section is still red, that means there are items there that you have or haven't discovered yet. This is an excellent time saver. Resident Evil 2 is survival horror at its best. Resources are scarce. Ammo can be found in the environment, or you can even find gunpowder to craft some. Still, ammo is very limited, so choose your battles wisely. In the beginning, I was going crazy with my bullets, unloading on any enemy who I crossed paths with. I quickly got to a point where I had 0 bullets, but there were a ton of enemies. Being so defenseless was horrifying. Having every bullet count really ups the fun. There's this pressure of landing shots. Zombies take many bullets before dying, making them formidable foes, and even after downing them, they may only be playing dead. I love the amount of decision making this game offers. Do I kill zombies or do I stun them? Do I run away? Well, if I run, what's the best path to take so I don't get grabbed? All the enemies deal a ton of damage, and health items are scarce. Trying to juke the enemies was also part of the fun. Safe rooms offer a break from all the madness. In these mostly safe places, you can save your game and manage your inventory. Every safe room has a supply crate in which you can store as many items as you'd like. That being said, the inventory space on your character is low. In the beginning of the game, you only have 8 item slots. The number of items you can carry increases as you find pouch upgrades throughout the game. Still, you won't always have a safe room in reach, so you'll have to leave items behind or even discard items in your inventory to make room for something else. This led to tough calls throughout my playthroughs. Discarding an item means it's gone forever. Leaving an item behind is a nice choice because the item's location stays on the map. However, do I want to risk returning to this spot later on? The limited space adds to the tension, and I really enjoyed this mechanic. The level design is very impressive. There's a lot of exploring to do, and even though the map isn't enormous, it feels like the perfect size for a game like this. In this game, it's important to explore to find items, but it's also important to learn the map. The police station, for example, can feel like a maze. Some paths and doors are locked. Part of the fun for me was pulling out the map and planning a route. There was also this feeling of satisfaction I got from recognizing where I was and knowing how to get from point A to B the quickest way. There are some intense, time-sensitive moments where you don't have the luxury of taking your sweet time. There were moments I was being chased. I had to get from point A to B as fast as possible, and even though I planned my route, even though I thought I knew the map, I would make wrong turns to eventual dead ends, and turn around to see my chaser closing in on me. It was horrifying, and I loved it. As the game progresses, you're introduced to more enemy types. Even about 20 hours later, I still view the base zombies as a threat. Because all of the enemies deal a lot of damage, even a single zombie can be intimidating. The difficulty rises even more when the enemy count increases. What adds to the tension and the fear is the fact that you're rarely ever in an open space. This is a very tight, close quarters experience, and it's easy to get cornered if you're not careful. Your character is also pretty slow. There are a bunch of puzzles throughout the game. I thought they were enjoyable. The game tells you your objective, but doesn't tell you where you need to go or how to solve anything. That's up to you to figure out. In my first playthrough, there were a couple of times I got stuck, not knowing where to go. My advice to anyone who gets stuck is to look at your inventory. Special items that usually help you move forward in the story get a little red check mark when they never need to be used again. When I was stuck, I would check my inventory. I wouldn't pay any mind to those items with the red check mark, so by process of elimination, I would focus on the items I still needed and think about how I could use those items. It's also worth examining items because you might just find some hidden treasures. There is a lot of backtracking in Resident Evil 2, but that didn't bother me. You'll find locked doors that require special keys like a spade key. Well, later when I found the spade key, I would think, oh great, now I can go open those doors and see what's inside the rooms, hoping for some good loot. The game also makes backtracking more fun by throwing some surprises at you. This is a game that will keep you on your toes from start to finish. Again, the level design is very clever. Dreamality, what's the difference between playing as Leon or Claire? Now that's a great question. For one, they each have different weapons. Claire has a grenade launcher while Leon has a shotgun. They each have some unique locations, items, and puzzles. For example, although in Leon's story you'll see heart doors, only Claire gets a heart key to open those doors. There are also some different enemy and item spawns between the A runs versus the B runs. The biggest differences though between the two characters are the bonus character missions unique to each story, which were great, as well as the final boss encounters. Other than that, they both play very much the same puzzles, same locations. You're going to be doing a lot of things twice. How's the replay value? Well, to get the true ending, you need to complete an A run and a B run. For me, that took about 20 hours. I was satisfied with how the game concluded, but I gotta say, I was a bit disappointed with how similar both experiences were. The problem is, I loved the first run, and basically doing the same thing twice lost some magic for me. It was worth playing twice, but I don't feel any desire to play through the same thing 2 more times anytime soon. I will return eventually. I did pick up some DLC, and this noir costume adds a black and white filter, which I had fun playing with for a bit. It made me feel like I was in one of those old school zombie films. It was a fun way to spice up my second playthrough. After beating a character's story, you get a grade that takes into account how long it took you to beat the story and how many saves you had. I scored a C on both my runs. If you care about getting the best grade, then you'll find enjoyment in speedrunning through the stories. Caring about the grade and changing the difficulty could add some more replay value for you. After beating the stories, you also unlock a 4th survivor mode, which is a fast-paced speedrun in which you have set items. The mode is very intense, speedrunners will love it. I thought it was fun, but nothing I'll be returning to. Still, it's nice to have more content on the disc. If you're able to complete the 4th survivor mode, you unlock another mode which is basically the same thing but with a different character. Anyway, the motivation's there if you want it. There's also free DLC coming very soon. It sounds great and it's free, so that's awesome. Just some additional thoughts here. Start to finish, the game looks beautiful, the lighting is spectacular, the animations also look great. These are the best looking zombies I've ever seen in a video game. The slow moving zombies, their movements are captured perfectly. There's a stunning amount of detail on display, like when damaging enemies. When shooting a zombie in the face, for example, you'll see the skin and flesh flying off with each successful hit. The character you're playing as has 3 levels of health on display. There's Fine, Caution, and Danger. There's also a visual level of damage on display of your character's model. For example, after being chomped by a zombie and entering Caution health, Leon starts to limp and has some blood on him. There's also audible feedback. Leon sounds like he's in pain and he's breathing heavier. Those details made it more immersive for me and made me want to heal my characters as much as possible. There's a lot of shock value on display. I think they balanced the shock value perfectly, making this a horrifying experience. The animations that followed being grabbed by a zombie is part of what made them so scary. Also, I really like Claire and Leon. It was never easy to watch them being eaten alive by the undead. The presentation and the sound design at work here are fantastic, very hard-hitting. To my surprise, there are a couple of varied locations in the game that I won't spoil. They all look great. I really like the location of the final act. I really enjoyed exploring that part. One of my biggest takeaways for the environment had to be one shot where you first see some plants. That's all I'm gonna say about that. The remake soundtrack is very different from the originals. The original soundtrack from the game that came out almost 20 years ago isn't included on the disc. It's DLC you have to buy for about $2, and that disappoints me. It seems like a disservice to the fans, and in a way it feels like fans are being taken advantage of. The original has such a following, I imagine all those players want to play with the original music. For a game that gets so much right, this is where Capcom missed the mark. It isn't about the money, it's about the principle. The remake soundtrack is very ambient, though it does pick up when stuff starts going down. The original soundtrack is much more present. There's always music, and it felt more intense to me. I played Leon's run with the remake's music and Claire's run with the original soundtrack. It was a nice way to mix up the experience a bit. The voice acting from all the characters is good, and the sound design overall is fantastic. Again, the zombies sound great. There's also a part of the game in which you'll hear an enemy's footsteps as he searches an area for you, and whenever I heard those footsteps, my heart was racing. The performance was very solid all the way through. A minor complaint would be the AI sometimes though. I know they're zombies and not supposed to be bright, but seeing them walk into environments for lengthy periods of time broke the immersion for me a bit. Capcom did a fantastic job with this remake. Survival horror games are rare. Good survival horror games are even rarer. And to have one this good is almost unheard of. I'm gonna say this right now, this is the best survival horror game I've ever played. I was looking forward to this game, but did not expect it to be this good. There were moments that really blew me away. This is a quality experience from start to finish. I, like many people, suffered from zombie fatigue ever since they blew up in pop culture, but Capcom has made me afraid of zombies again. Well done. I have no major complaints here. I do think the AI could be a bit better, and I wish the original soundtrack was included for free. Other than that, this is a beautiful looking game with incredible sound design, animations, and lighting. The story, though not mind-blowing, is enjoyable. The gameplay is very fun, and the level design is clever. This is a terrifying experience. I was so scared sometimes I had to pause the game to catch my breath. Here's my final verdict. I say Resident Evil 2 the remake is an amazing game. This was completely worth my money and time. For me, this is looking like an early Game of the Year contender, it's that good. It really surprised me, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it to anyone who enjoys survival horror. It doesn't matter if you've never played a Resident Evil game before, I say if it looks fun, give it a go. You have heard my thoughts, now it's time to share yours. If you played the remake, let me know what you think. I would also love to hear what fans of the original PlayStation 1 game have to say about this remake. Did it do it justice? Let me know. If you have any questions about Resident Evil 2 the remake, feel free to ask down below. I hope this review was helpful, I hope it was enjoyable, and as always, thanks for watching.
Whoa, don't shoot!
Get down!